I got another meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. It's now 5:30. I'd like to call the April 27, 26 Calhoun County Council meeting to order. Why don't you give us the invocation, please, ma'am?
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we ask for your guidance in this meeting. Open our minds and help us to be respectful, constructive as we conduct the business of the county. Amen.
Amen.
Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Properly moved in second. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Richard, do you have any public comments?
No, sir.
No public comments. Motion for approval of the April 13, 2026 regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. The approval of the April 2026 budget work session. You have a motion to approve that.
So moved. Second.
Properly moved in second. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise, the ayes have it. We have one appointment, Board of Zoning Appeals. Whose appointment is that, Richard? Richard, you ready to?
I can. I'd like to make an appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals for Andrea Fogel.
Second.
Properly moving second that we appoint Andre Fogel to the Board of Zoning and Appeals. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise, the ayes have it. Under appearances, we have Wills, Walls, Love, Bailey and Associates, the audit presentation.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for having me tonight. Like you said, my name is Will Walls and I'm an audit partner at Love Bailey. And I'm here to go over the 2025 audit. That's the year ending 6/30. And I believe I gave you the actual audited financial statements. And I think we all agreed that we didn't want to go over all of those. We just want to go over the synopsis. So I did give you a folder with the audit summary overview. First, to start off, y'all received a modified opinion, which is the best opinion that the county can get. It means that the financial statements are materially correct within accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Y'all did have 5 internal control findings for the year, which I was just discussing with Richard. That's an improvement from last year. Y'all had 7 findings last year.
Did you say modified or unmodified?
Unmodified. Yes, sir.
I saw
Unmodified, so that's a clean opinion. Yes, sir. So you can kind of look through those findings. A lot of it has to do with just having an independent review of different transactions for each of the different departments. And I know I was just talking with Richard about this. They have implemented a lot of these, but one thing to keep in mind, this audit is for the period July of 2024 to June of 2025. So even if these things were alleviated during the year, if it occurred at the beginning of the year, it's still showing up as a finding for the 2025 audit. And a lot of these aren't very uncommon for smaller governments. It's kind of difficult sometimes to create segregation of duties and good independent reviews, but I know they're trying their best to have either the Treasurer's Department or the Finance Department to review a lot of these transactions to alleviate a lot of these findings. The following page is a good highlights and key results for your general fund. And that's the biggest fund for the county that I know a lot of y'all really care about when y'all are budgeting and stuff. So we like to go into detail of your general fund results. So your general fund revenues have increased year over year, reaching $18.8 million in 2025. Your fund expenditures for the general fund increased around $1.6 million to $19.5 million. And in total, your fund balance increased $2 million from the previous year to $4.6 million. And the little chart below is just it's an easy way for you to see that. Both your revenues and expenditures increased around 9%. And then your other financing sources, which is basically your non-operating revenues and expenses, was a positive $2.8 million compared to a deficit of $222,000 last year. And I'll go into a little more detail on that, but overall your revenues increased mostly because of increase in tax revenues of $1.2 million. A lot of that's just growth within the county, and then y'all also have some new FILO agreements with Sandy Run And your EMS fees increased around $251,000 from the previous year. Some overall expenditure highlights, y'all are dealing with some inflation as far as your health insurance increasing, along with some more employees. Your building and grounds increased around $343,000. The salaries and wages for the sheriff's department increased around $500,000. And then y'all had some increase in state aid expenditures of $150,000. And the other financing sources section, I know I mentioned that y'all had a deficit of $223,000 last year and then a positive $2.8 million this year. And most of that is due to more transfers in 2025 compared to 2024. So basically, other funds were sending money to the general fund, and that's not unusual. But I'm going to discuss that a little further on the following pages. The transfer out in 2024 was $297,000 compared to a transfer in of $2.8 million in 2025. So overall, your change in fund balance for the general fund was a positive $2 million because of those transfers in. The following page is some good graphs that kind of show your revenues and expenditures year over year from 23 to 25. And one thing I did want to point out is you can kind of see that your expenditures have always been slightly above your revenues each year. So that's one thing to take into consideration while you're working on budgets and just preparing for the future. Your expenditure composition is just a breakdown of where you're spending the money in the general fund. General government expenditures was the majority of that, 42%. Public safety, 21%, and then your public works was 17%, with the other departments making up the remaining of the expenditures for the general fund. The following page is an overview of your other governmental funds, which is your capital projects fund, grants fund, capital project sales tax fund, and then any of your non-related funds, your smaller funds. So overall, those governmental fund revenues increased, reaching $11.9 million in 2025. Your expenditures decreased $1.7 million to $4.1 million, and then your overall fund balance had a decrease of $1.5 million, and a lot of that is generated by more transfers out, which obviously went to the general fund during the year. So you can see there that your revenues increased 25%, your expenditures decreased 29%. So from an operational standpoint, your other governmental funds operated really well this year. Y'all just had more transfers out than in the previous year. I believe your transfers out in 2024 was $568,000 compared to $4.3 million in 2025. So that was the main reason for the decrease in fund balance was just those transfers out. And your change in fund balance for all your governmental funds, your other governmental funds, was $1.5 million for the year. The following page is a highlight and overview of your proprietary funds, and that's your water system, wastewater, and then the golf course. And total proprietary fund revenues remained relatively constant at $1.6 million. Your expenses increased slightly, around $133,000 to $2.3 million. And in total, your net position increased $802,000. And a lot of that was also due to transfers into the proprietary fund. So as you can see, your total revenues decreased around 1%. Total expenses increased 6%. And in total, your operating loss decreased around $150,000 compared to last year. And then again, your transfers in and transfers out, you had around $310,000 of transfers in 2024 compared to $1.5 million of transfers in 2025. And in total, your change in net position was at $802,000. So one key consideration when you're thinking about these transfers in and transfers out, ideally, you would like to see that proprietary fund be able to support itself, so you're not pulling money from the general fund, and that could deal with operational improvements or rate increases. I know nobody likes to talk about rate increases, but just to try to make sure that proprietary fund can increase so that it can support itself throughout the year, and not draw money from the general fund or any of the other funds. So the following page is a highlight of your balance sheet, which is your assets and liabilities. And this is for the government as a whole. So this is your general fund, your other governmental funds, and your proprietary fund. You had around $73.4 million of total assets at 6/30/2025, which is an increase from 72 million in 2024. Your total liabilities decreased from 38 million in 24 to 34.9 million in 2025. And then overall, your net position, which is your assets minus your liabilities, increased around $4.5 million from the previous year. And one large statistic that we always like to look at as the auditors of the performance and just looking at how the county is doing as a whole, your unrestricted cash on hand has decreased over the past 3 years. You can see that in the bar graph there. In 24, you had around $21.2 million of unrestricted cash, and in 25, it was about $19.1 million. And from a liquidity standpoint, we always do a calculation of how much unrestricted cash you have to cover operating expenses, and it's measured in months. So in 23, y'all had around 9 months of unrestricted cash to cover operating expenses, and in 25, that was about 7 months. And that's still a pretty good reserve. The GFOA recommends around 3 months for a reserve for governmental entities, just to account for the timing of receipts or any unexpected costs you might have. So y'all still appear well reserved, but one thing I wanted to point out was just the cash has been decreasing year over year. So that's one thing to take into consideration as you do budgets or try to make decisions on major unexpected expenditures that you might be doing as a county. And the bottom part of that is just your capital assets overview. In total, your capital assets increased $3.2 million from the previous year. Y'all had a good bit of CIP additions for fire station and road improvements, $1.3 million of water improvement projects, and around $1.2 million for, I believe, 4 new ambulances, $991,000 in additions to leased vehicles, which I'm sure most of that is the sheriff's department and just all their vehicles. But in total, you had around $2.4 million of depreciation and amortization expense for the year. And then one of the final pages is just your debt overview. So looking at how much debt the county has as a whole at 6/30/2025, you can see your GO bonds was around $5 million. Your revenue bond was around $2.3 million. Your finance lease obligations, $2.7 million. And then your leases payable was around $1.2 million. And the far right-hand column is the future principal and interest payments that are due within a year of this, the date of the financial statements, which is around $2.5 million in total. And I did include the principal payments and interest payments in that cash on hand calculation. So that does include principal and interest payments as far as calculating the operating expenditures for the county. Just one thing to let you know about that. And the final 3 pages or 2 pages is really just a summary and outlook just for your reading and just for your understanding, and kind of put it in a big picture thing. It's basically everything I've been going over that y'all received in the modified opinion. And just to keep in mind, the cash has been decreasing some over the past 3 years. But overall, y'all seem to be going in the right direction as far as planning from an economic development standpoint and just growth within the county with improvements y'all are doing. And I know y'all are continually working on resolving those internal control findings that were in this 2025 audit. So with that, I'll open it up now with any questions that you all may have regarding the 25 audit.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments?
The cash, when I first came on 10 years ago, the philosophy of the board was that we ought to have enough cash on hand to run the government for about 2 years. I'd never seen that before.
Right.
I was superintendent of the school district, and we never had a cash position like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, y'all are well reserved. I just wanted to point that out, that y'all have been decreasing each year, just to let y'all know. I mean, I know I said that y'all are well reserved.
Yeah, we have always been well reserved since I've been here.
Yes, sir.
And my position was at that time that we should be looking at somehow adjusting that back, because what you're doing is you're taxing people, and you're not spending the money on anything. You just put it in the bank.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
And so if you are taxing to fix my road in front of my house and I die before you fix it and I'll pay the taxes to get it fixed, then I'm
Right, yes, sir.
just losing money.
Yes,
So,
sir, no, I understand.
yeah, so, anyhow, that was just a thought that y'all, I'm glad we're moving in, I'm actually glad we're moving in the direction we are.
Right, oh, yeah.
Now, at some point, we'll have to make adjustments in our tax structure to make the difference up. I'm sure, so
Yes, sir.
people need to understand that, I guess. Okay.
Anyone else have any?
No, sir.
I think part of that kid, I think, was one time when I first came on council, it was a while before you, was that Eastman was the primary.
Yes, they were paying
Payable
about 60 to
taxes,
70% of the
The
tax.
county was, yeah, and the county was kind of gun shy that if something happened, they left.
Yeah.
They wanted to have enough revenue without throwing a big increase on people at one time. And that was some of the reason I think they did.
I got it.
Fortunately, we're in better situation now. We have more industries and stuff in the county now. Okay. Anybody else for Mr. Walls? Good job. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
McCollum.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. No more appearances. We're down to the resolutions. Resolution 6-2026, resolution Calhoun County Council adopting the Calhoun County Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan 2026. Richard, you want to tell us a little bit
Yes,
about
sir,
it?
Mr. Chairman, so for those that were at the last full council meeting, they made a presentation on this and asked for the counties to go ahead and pass the resolution. The kind of weird thing about this is it's been tied up at FEMA for months, so we don't have a hazard mitigation plan. But this is, the resolution is worded as such that you would be approving the plan when it comes out of FEMA, whatever time that is. Unfortunately, we are now, I guess as of Saturday, we no longer have a plan. So we're kind of in no man's land for FEMA grants because we don't have a hazard mitigation plan. And it's, like I say, it's been tied up at FEMA for months on end now with all the craziness going on there. But so this resolution is in some manner a little bit premature, but this will save us from having to do it whenever we do finally get it back from FEMA.
Oh, we're not a lone wolf in this though.
No,
right?
sir, we're not. We
Okay.
are not. This was a year where we did regionally, the COG did it. We did a regional hazard mitigation plan. Now, there are certain counties that have different expiration dates that are not in the same position we are, but all of us are tied up with FEMA issues right now, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt resolution 6-2026.
Second.
Properly moving second that we adopt resolution 6-2026. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise, the ayes have it. Okay, on the ordinances. Ordinance 2026-2, second reading. An ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Article 5 of the Calhoun County Code of Ordinances to allow for amendments to the Calhoun County procurement codes.
You ready for motion?
Yeah,
I think we've already.
we can get a motion in a second, then if you got
Okay,
some questions.
Mr. Chairman, I move we give second reading to ordinance 2026-2. Second.
Properly moving second. Any questions, comments? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Ordinance 2026-3, second reading. An ordinance to amend Chapter 21 of the Calhoun County Code of Ordinances regarding the creation and the duties of the Economic Development Cooperation.
I'll make the motion. Second.
Properly moving second that we approve second reading on ordinance 2026-3. Any comments or questions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise, the ayes have it. First reading on ordinance 2026-4. An ordinance to provide for the appropriation of funds, the levy of taxes for the fiscal year 2026, 2027 for the operation, debt service, building fund, and food service of the public schools of Calhoun County, the Orangeburg Calhoun Technical College, the Calhoun County Disabilities and Special Needs Board, including the El Marion Gressett Center, to provide for the deposits and disbursements of funds and to provide otherwise for the affairs of public education in Calhoun County.
I move to give first reading.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any further discussion on it? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise, the ayes have it. Ordinance 2026-5, first reading. An ordinance adopting the budget for the County of Calhoun County and to provide for the levy of taxes and fees and for the expenditures thereof for county purposes for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2026 and ending June 30th, 2027, and declaring that the same shall constitute the budget of the County of Calhoun for such fiscal year, authorizing and approving a tax anticipation note and other matters related thereto. Have a motion for approval of first reading on ordinance 2026-5.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any further discussion or comments? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise, the ayes have it. Richard, look like I'm down to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't really have a whole lot. I wanted to say thank you for everybody that participated and took part in the Purple Martin Festival and all the numerous staff, the county, the town, all the vendors and food trucks, everybody that came. We had over 100 vendors and food trucks that came. It was a good hot day, a good parade, and I think it was overall a good success. I did want to point out related to the budget ordinances, both of them. Both of those budgets are presented balanced with no millage increase proposed for this year for both the school district and the county funds.
Question, when is the appropriate time for me to ask to put fiscal autonomy on the ballot for the school district? Doesn't it have to be approved by a vote of the popular of the county?
I will get back with you on the way that works. I think it goes through legislative delegation. I'm not sure that that's a referendum question or a delegation question, but I'll find out and get back with you on that.
I know that we have approached that
Yes,
before, and then because of the politics of the
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
of the government, the state government,
Yeah, that's
it was put aside.
yeah. I thought the council had approved something like that, and I don't know what happened when it got to the
Well,
delegation.
that's why I would like
I
to
think
see
we
it
need-
done
yeah.
again.
I think what we,
All right.
yeah, I think what we talk about on that is and why I'm in favor of the schools having autonomy is we can't line item veto anything. We'd have to disapprove the entire budget. And then we'd be the bad guy sure enough if we disapprove the school budget.
Well, yeah, not only that, but the school board is elected by the same
It is.
people that elect
From the
us.
same districts we elected from. So the same people are there and the people have the right, just like they can get rid of us.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're not doing our jobs, they can get rid of them if they figure they're not doing their jobs. So I don't think you need to have a overseer or overseeing something else. I don't think we would put here for that.
I'll bring that back to you. I believe that if I remember correctly, the last time it passed in the House, I think it takes approval at the House and the Senate. I think it passed in the House last time, but didn't make it through the Senate. But I'll bring something back to the next council.
Well,
meeting.
we have, I mean, I know that we had some support from our delegation.
Yes, sir.
And then because it was one of those things, a bargaining chip that was thrown out
Yes,
as opposed to carry through with. But I'd like to see it brought back up.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
and we won't be the long ranger doing that. I think most counties,
Just about all counties have.
except us, I mean, a few of us that don't have that, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Richard.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so do you have anything else, Richard?
No, sir.
Any councilman have anything?
I just want to second what Richard said about the Purple Martin Festival. I thought it was a great day. And I thought the volunteers, the vendors, everyone that worked, after it was over, it was clean. There was I rode down through town Saturday afternoon and I was amazed at how clean everything was. So I want to commend everybody who came, the volunteers, the vendors. It was an excellent day.
Yeah, I think that thing's getting better and better. We brought it back and it's getting better and better.
Yeah.
Appreciate the ones of y'all. I was out of town, but appreciate the ones of y'all who stayed around and made it successful. Anybody else?
Yes, so there's gonna be an open house at the Red Rock Fire Department on May 9th, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. The volunteer firefighters will be there. You'll be able to tour the new fire station. EMS, the sheriff's department, and LifeNet helicopter will also be there. And they're gonna be serving hamburgers and hot dogs.
When that again now?
May 9th, 11 to 3.
And we're gonna be sharing that post on social media, getting that out as well.
Richard, you had something I thought I saw. You
I
had
just point Rebecca on your shoes.
Anybody else?
Good.
Thank you all. The press, if you have something, you can address it to Richard. I'll still be up here if you need to talk to me. A motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moving second. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, likewise, the ayes have it. Thank you all for coming.
All right.
We meet now.
I mean, have we got everybody we need to meet
We
now?
meet at 6:30.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey.